Scooby Doo is 50. That's nearly, what, 4 dogs old? 3 if you push it. Videos are hard to write, okay? I mean, I don't have anything deeper to say. If you like Scoob, you know why. Hanna-Barbera's characters have always managed to strike a chord, even if that chord is absolute spiteful hatred, or the Herculoids. Do you know? I don't. Maybe there's something to be said about the fact that only Scooby has stuck around. The others turn up now and then to help sell premium bonds or whatever, but only Scooby is still on our screens entertaining kids of all ages. It's because it's not just Scoob the character that works, it's Scoob the concept. Flintstones, yeah, we love it, but yeah, we get it. Average family in dinosaur times, the vacuum opens up and goes, "Oy vey, I am a vacuum and it sucks." Applause, Winston cigarettes. Can't put them in a different scenario without it essentially being a whole different show. Snagglepuss, the lion who acts, has been forced out of relevancy by changing media, stage left even, although you can still catch him in Washington giving words of inspiration to Doggy Dad. Quick Draw was a cowboy horse. Jabberjaw, I don't like you. Yogi Bear, I think he's the true Mickey Mouse of Hanna-Barbera, but even I have to admit it's probably just me. Can't not love this dumb idiot bear, I'm sorry.
Ticket? I don't need no ticket. I'm a bear!
No, Scooby-Doo has always, since the beginning, shown the most versatility as a concept, because he had ghosts. From day one, it was the juxtaposition of creepy weird mystery solving with a talking dog strapped to its leg that has allowed Scooby to stick around on our screens in a much more serious capacity. You don't just remember Scooby, you remember everything else too, and that stuff has the ability to be scaled in intensity without losing the need or appeal of this cowardly mutt. I'ma reminisce, look back on the bits I remember, and how they scaled the concept. All shall be judged on the Scooby scale.
Wherever you hide, yeah, you gotta face it, baby. Things go bump, bump, bump in the night.
Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Set the groundwork for the show's appeal, taking popular works from the time and blending them in a very Hanna-Barbera way. Most of their properties took a popular format or celebrity and bound it to the astral cartoon plane in the shape of an animal, but Scooby put a lot more into the pot. The Archies, old Universal horror movies, the entire visual culture of the 60s, these genre-heavy elements would make a decent little time waster on their own, and have, but add a talking dog and suddenly it's both super accessible and hilarious. Dogs, man. Nature's idiots. Nah, I'm just kidding. I love dogs too, they're just really funny, okay? Artistic direction goes a long way too, and I don't think enough people give Hanna-Barbera credit for being able to pull together a style. Limited animation doesn't matter when your world is this happening, you dig? Lead characters are charming to look at, drawn by a man aping the consummate fashion of his time, as much as just finding them current clothes to wear. And the backgrounds are a thing of beauty. Gothic? Yes. More abstractly textured? Yes. But with all the colour and funkified shapes of 60s Hollywood sets, so they contrast against the characters and fit in comfortably with their world. When guest stars started popping up in the show years later, it kind of worked, because Scooby already looked like it was taking place on a Warner Brothers Hollywood backlot. Why deny the stars an entrance here too? This combination of elements really sang. There's certainly comfort in the fact that you kind of knew the shape of what you were getting, but every episode was a different monster design, different location, and half the appeal is, give me 20 minutes, honey, I want to see who did it. Daryl, you're 35, get out of my house!
This is a warning to all living mortals that whosoever opens this chest of demons will release 13 of the most terrifying ghosts upon the face of the earth.
You donkey!
13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo actually takes the guest star idea to the next level, making Vincent Van Ghoul, the central gimmick. And while I don't think it was the greatest show, it's got a sense of its own I just can't shake, and maybe in part because it's the first to play hard into the more supernatural side of things. By this point, Scoob and Shag had started to turn up in more typical cartoonish stuff, and that's really saying something, with real ghosts, but it didn't break the formula, not just yet.
I mean, who do you think's been keeping the cartoon mystery fresh all this time? And I've been here longer than all of you!
Putting Scoob further out of his depth with real ghosts just draws more of his personality to the forefront, and taking away the skeptical members of the gang ends up making Shag and Scoob look more ironically justified whenever they reunite and swap notes. 13 Ghosts is the most unique take on that dynamic, and I kind of love how absurdist it is.
Rules are wrong. Please.
Every episode is like a lucid dream. I've seen Scooby's birth and watched his parents worriedly pacing the hospital floor. I've seen Flim Flam. There's a story waiting to be told. Bringing Vincent Price to kids is always a wickedly good time. I'm a fan of celebrities whose entire personality is based around horror, because when you're a kid, or at least when I was a kid, I thought, oh, are they actually vampires? Are they spooky? It's like believing in Santa Claus or something, you know? Naturally, I didn't really articulate it that way at the time. I'm sure what I actually said was goo goo gaga, I am a literal child. It's been even nicer seeing him remain part of Scooby lore all these years later, and while the movie based on this sort of drags its feet, it at least felt more ambiguously well connected than whatever they tried to do with, well, you know.
It's time to say goodbye.
Ghoul School's not that good, okay? I mean, these filler films do represent my point, that even more throwaway adventures than 13 Ghosts, where the ghouls are not only real but friendly and super cartoony, still accommodate Scooby's existence as much as the original formula. You can throw Shag and Scoob into any of these situations and they fit right in. You don't even really need any detailed explanation of why or how they got there. One too many Scooby snacks and Yahoo chases maybe? I don't know, I wouldn't do it. But yeah, there's like a 15-minute PTA scene. You guys are talented, I get it, it's just, I don't trust it, man. I don't trust wholesome. There's got to be a better young kid orientated. A Pup Named Scooby Doo is a series people remember as being good, but barely anyone unpacks why. So I want to put it out there, it's because it had a hell of a spin on the style. It wasn't just, oh, let's age the kids down and make them hip to the youth. That old yeller has long been shotgunned. They recognised that the original Scooby Doo was set in the 60s, so you roll the decade back and suddenly you've got this whole new stylistic angle right there in the 50s. No mistaking its influence as much as its source material in that song. What it does really though is accommodate the whole gang in a space that's extremely peppy, fun, and light-hearted, scaled down from everything that already worked without being at all reductive. That's a take worth bringing back someday, cause like the original series, in the cold light of retro hindsight, it's kind of timeless. Zombie Island will always have my heart, still far and away the best Scooby-Doo feature. If Pup is a great example of scaling down, this is the best example of scaling up. It's got all the beats of a regular episode, but it's the angles they've chosen to sharpen that set it apart. It's not unusual for the gang to visit a creepy swamp setting in a specific part of America, but how often would they dig into the history of Louisiana, of settlers and spice plantations, a place that is almost the hub of spooky mystery in real life? How often would the characters talk about all the cliches they'd encounter in their journey, and actually find themselves on a character arc from jaded cynics to believers? And the ghosts, of course, slide way up in intensity. My favourite detail is in how they clue you into the danger this time around from the start. Certainly don't remember the monsters being quite this violent. There's a lot of great commentary made about the series overall, maybe the greatest point being made by the identity of the villains themselves. Spoilers. The cat creature thing is amazing because it satisfies so many exciting thematic opportunities. First is the unexpected thrill. I did not predict cat creatures, or that something with Scooby Doo in the title would have something that looks like that. Second, the intrinsic thrill, that this has actually been hinted at throughout the story and is going to build to a crazy but ultimately sensible conclusion. Well, sensible as it gets anyway. Third, the extrinsic thrill. Of course Scooby's first major film villains are hyper-realistic cats. Of course. I was always going to have the most to say about ZI because it's probably where I first noticed the scalability of the franchise and its lasting power. I was very young when I first saw it, but I remember even at that point liking Scooby as a sort of given. Of course I like this thing, it's a cartoon and it's on when I watch it, and I'll probably be onto something else in the future. Then this came along and hooked me right back in. We watched the Scooby Gang become rejuvenated in the same way the franchise and audience were, leading to a bunch of follow-up movies that actually were pretty good too. Witch's Ghost is equally solid at what it does, even adding stuff that kind of validated the series' relationship with musical numbers over the years. Could open the door to scale to a musical series, and you know, that's all I'm saying. Forget the Ghoul School, you guys on small girl obsessed Twitter want something like Gem but with goth metal? 2 words.
Girl.
Scooby-Doo the movie does what it needed to, suffers from being part of a post-scary movie generation of films, when it really needed to be more post-Scream. But it again shows that even stuffed into a universe based on 5 minutes of fame, the characters and concept now has developed enough deep lore to justify an entire movie designed to kill Scrappy-Doo. And it worked!
Wow, I haven't seen...
Look away, Daphne. We all promised each other that we would never speak of him. Not ever.
Still kinda wish it used that intro, but, you know. Scooby-Doo 2 is where it's really at, though. For me, anyway. I think one thing Cyberchase tapped into that the others didn't is that all the old monsters are pretty iconic in their own right. It was a thrill when those guys came back in that movie because it had just never happened before. Now you're telling me they're going to do it with not only more spooky ghosts from the show, but with Hollywood money? Well, on a Spy Kids budget at least. And they're not badly chosen either. The Black Knight Ghost was Scooby's first ever villain, so it's a great homage to make him such a big part of the movie. And in this hilarious sick-ass real suit they made, Christ all Muppet. If you always liked the monsters and were a big Scooby-Doo nerd, this had at least one ghost you cared about hanging around, either as part of the plot or just a cameo in the for real museum of costumes they actually built for the movie. That's right, folks, I was a 10,000 volt ghost fan. Did not expect to be validated like this, oh my god. It's still got too many of the post-scary movie vibes. Someone pass the bleach, thanks. But it really makes up for it in a lot of moments that I can't get out of my mind. I submit to the jury this as being the peak of Fred Jones' character arc. Yes! After trying to appeal to an audience that would be obliterated come the end of the decade, 2 just goes for all the things you like and love about the franchise on the big screen. It even has jokes designed only for me.
As if you getting the lead in My Fair Lady wasn't enough. I was an excellent Eliza.
Mystery Incorporated isn't a series I love, but it's a series that's hard for me to dislike. Scooby's never looked this good, probably never will again. It's not simply the Scooby-Doo formula but updated, it's essentially going back to the oil wells of the original show and mining each element as deep as it possibly can.
Fish people.
Richer colours and backgrounds, richer 60s apparel, richer stylization of the original designs, and a nicely seasoned take on the characters' personalities.
My generation, we only got one thing on our minds.
Solving mysteries and building traps.
I've got a friend who is fascinated by the male relationships on this show. Like, literally all the guys are completely and utterly stuck in Arrested Development, and it's almost like they know it and are terrified, and they're prevented from confronting it because they live with a talking dog. The women are just broken, wondering how they got annexed to all of this. Quote my friend, "Fred is a string of skin-deep, paper-thin coping mechanisms. I will never be this right." It's not so much a scaling up on the level of Zombie Island, as it is scaling deep into the original show's quirks in the shape of a serial, more reflective of the binge-watching generation of television that was just about to really kick off at the time this broke out. And the fact you can even do that with the original Scooby premise is pretty boss, because believe you me, the Riverdale version of the Flintstones, it just isn't happening. I found you in the gay forest, Barn. You better tell your wife or I'll kill her at my next D&D roleplay session. Riverdale, man, you guys don't even know. FrankenCreepy is deeply underrated. There was a period of time where the straight-to-DVD Scooby movies were starting to wear thin, becoming feature-length episodes rather than things that wanted to be movies. But it came back around again when they started doing crossovers, cutting loose and trying to be an event worthy of the extended runtime. And you know what? It worked. You know, everyone remembers that scene. Nobody talks about their sleeping arrangements.
Come on, lights out, you two.
Okie doke, Fred. Sweet dreams, Scoob.
You too, Raggy.
Give Fred the bed, you bastards. But FrankenCreepy is the one that feels like a proper, for real Scooby event. The one that only the franchise can give us.
We've brought down more than our share of villains, with nothing more than pluck, jerry-rigged traps, and a box of Scooby snacks. And for no better reason than a love of justice, and my van, and a knack for meddling, and a love for my van.
The story of Frankenstein, though really by way of Young Frankenstein, told through Velma. Creepy is an out-and-out satire, as well as a deconstruction of the gang and their relationship with mystery solving. This was probably the moment when the franchise finally took a sledgehammer to the fourth wall and just let it all tumble down, but not in a way that resolved their trauma. Realizing all of their flaws just kinda made it worse. It's also the best editing in a Scooby movie ever. I don't know who cut this together, whoever you are, I want to hug you. I can't do it justice. I can't say anything. Set the scale to funny. That's it, we're done. This is the best. Oh, and speaking of...
Scooby-Dooby.
Be Cool Scooby Doo has a bad rap. I would like to be the first to actually defend the style. It's deceptively Seth MacFarlane at a first glance, yes, but on closer inspection, it's a lot more interested in creating clear individual silhouettes and features than everyone feeling like slightly deformed clones of each other. It's also got a lot going for it in the animation department. I was caught off guard by just the way stuff moved in quite a few episodes now. Oh, and the monster designs? Underratedly good. They're often backgrounded by funny or decent premises for the episodes too. There's one that is a straight up fusion of Psycho and The Shining, and I feel like that's something that should have happened at least 7 times before. The thing I think it proves is that the Scoob scenario lends itself well to just out and out comedy. There's always been funny elements, but the absurdity of the franchise doesn't feel like a portrayal of what was already going on at all. There's a pathetic, defeated look to these guys that really suits. Nobody looks like they know what they're doing, and that's kind of absolutely 100% the case. The only one who actually scales in the opposite direction of all this, however, is Scooby, who appears to be an omnipotent godlike being with the most savage put-downs and comebacks ever uttered by a dog.
Scoob, your electrical engineering degree is coming in handy.
Finally.
I think I may have actually figured something out.
Who said that?
No wonder I can't count the time Scooby rescued me. He hasn't.
Rescued from high blood pressure.
Might be my favourite Scoob.
This really is a nightmare. Maybe Daphne's right.
Yeah, dogs can't talk.
It's a shame this got a poor reputation on the initial reaction, but there's enough of it not to matter. And to be honest, it's still colouring the franchise even now. But there is a Scooby piece of merchandise that makes all of this look like kitty litter. It's one that scales the franchise to the highest highs and continues to bring us a vision of Scooby that propels the concept of fear, the thrill of a mystery, to a new postmodern future blah 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 Scoob and Shag. Scoob and Shag was just a joke, right? It was just a comic that started as a little haha secretly existential crisis inside thing, and then oh no! And it was still a joke when it suddenly gained a plot and got serious, and had characters who normally wouldn't do or say this stuff doing and saying this stuff. Never seen that before, right? No, that's not why Scoob and Shag is genius. That's not why I'm putting it on this list. Scoob and Shag, though you might not have noticed, is actually a commentary on how Scooby-Doo is the most reliable, most versatile, most secretly undervalued property in all of Western animation. How everything we relate to the show can scale to epic proportions. A monumental war erupts. These mascots you loved, they were real life. They're coming. They're still coming. Some of the most bitchin' attack names, all named after animation, TV, and editing terms, I might add. Everything you thought was fake is actually real. The crooks are all unmasked and trying to get us, and only by remembering our past can we rise up and reclaim what is ours. It all comes down to the big three, to 2 of the biggest animation giants on the planet, and of course their humble subsidiary, the one who's keeping his own corner of the fight afloat, destined to prove them all wrong. The underdog. It's really good, give it a read, someone paid to put my face in the credits and I'm going to kill them. Well, okay, I guess I had more to say than I thought, but that's kind of why Scooby keeps coming back. You sort of take it for granted. Stupid dumb dog, ooga booga. But you go back, you get into the jokes, you find yourself still invested in whatever happens next. They're going where now? They're meeting who? How? Scooby-Doo speaks for himself, and somehow we don't find that weird, but more respect needs to be given to why that's the case. Scooby needs the concept, and the concept needs Scooby. And I think Johnny Bravo summed up what keeps us coming back to their weird little world quite nicely.
You understand what that dog says?
Sure.
Thanks for watching, everyone. I wrote this video in 2 days. Does it show? Yes. Thank you to all my patrons who, it's thanks to them really I've been able to keep this up as frequently as I have recently. It's also funding a bunch of projects in the future, so please keep your eyes peeled for those. They will be out at some point rather soon. I've been a dog. This has been Do. Do you have a Scoobies? I don't.
This is tied for the most terrifying day of my life.
I was what?
Every other freaking day of my life.